U.S. sends more missile defense systems to Middle East. I love this headline because they don't want to actually give you the headline that explains we're about to go to World War III. The latest deployment is in response to growing threats from Iran and its allies in the region. President Biden has warned Iran to not join the war against Hamas. Why would Iran join a war against Hamas? See, the New York Times phrases these things in very interesting ways. So they're sending a THAAD battery, which is, I don't know if they have what it stands for. It's something high altitude aerial defense or something like this. I forgot what the first one is. U.S. sending THAAD battery and additional Patriot battalions, two of its most powerful weapons against missiles to the region. In a statement Sunday, blah, blah, blah. They're going to be sending a lot more. And we have this from Bloomberg. U.S. vows to hold Iran responsible for attacks on troops in Mideast. Pentagon spokesman places blame even without a direct order. U.S. is moving more forces, weapons, and ships to the region. So we already had 19,000. We're moving up to 21,000 active personnel in the region. I think Washington Post reported 4,000 Marines and sailors with 2,000 troops, I guess, more Marines. So I don't know how many of those individuals are specifically for ground combat. It says the U.S. ramped up its rhetoric toward Iran, saying it would hold Tehran accountable for drone and rocket attacks on U.S. troops by its proxies in the Middle East, even as Washington tries to avert a wider regional war. They keep saying that.
Is Washington actually trying to avert anything?
No.
I don't think so.
You've got folks like Nikki Haley that are just, they just want us to go to war. They've got Raytheon in their closet, and we shouldn't be involved at all. Biden shouldn't be making statements. And really, any Republican who calls himself America First should not be advocating for any action whatsoever in the Middle East. We have our own problems here. We don't need to worry about abroad. We've got veterans killing themselves. I think it's 16 a day. Young men killing themselves at astronomical rates, more than any other demographic in the country. We don't need to be over there. And especially in a situation where you've got two sides of it where both are committing atrocity. And I think most people just want peace. But even if you say you want peace, if you say you want a ceasefire, folks like Ben Shapiro will say that you're a pro-terrorist. And so it's really unfortunate. And if you're going to be America First, you cannot be pro-involvement in the Middle East at all.
So THAAD is Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, formerly known as Theater High Altitude Area Defense. So that's what it stands for. I remember when I was in South Korea, they had a bunch of people protesting, saying no THAAD. And the argument was that the U.S. was going to deploy the THAAD system to be able to respond to North Korean ballistic missile attacks. But as I mentioned in the earlier segment, many journalists are saying Hezbollah and Hamas don't have this. So the U.S. is just gearing up for war with Iran. I think a lot of these news stories, a lot of them are intentionally, they're seeding. They're a little bit of spice in the news to be like, get you used to it.
100%.
War with Iran. That way, when something happens, because now we've got conversations about sleeper cells, Hamas sleeper cells in the United States. Oh. The U.S. is trying to connect Hamas to Iran as much as they can because of what just happened in Israel. Now we've got reports, Kevin McCarthy, Ron DeSantis have been warning about this. They're saying Hamas has sent sleeper cells to the southern border. The next thing that happens is some kind of false flag or just an outright attack from Hamas. And then they say, see, that was Iran.
Yeah. I think ultimately that is the direction. I also think it's very difficult for the American people to keep up with all of the moving parts.
There are so many moving parts.
And they share a complicated, intertwined regional history that we just are blind to in a lot of ways.
We don't really know it.
We don't really know that history. And we know,
but what's interesting though, and this is some research I was doing over the weekend actually and last week, the history that we know of Israel and the Middle East is given to us primarily and given to our students by textbooks. And those textbooks were created, most of them, after 9/11 at this point. Mm-hmm. And they were heavily influenced by like the Center for Islamic Education that talked to the publishers and the textbook companies and made sure to have very positive views of Islam and very negative views of Judaism and Christianity. So when you see all of these high school students staging walkouts of like, saying like, free Palestine and like stand with Gaza and all of this stuff, they have been taught that in their history classrooms. That is what they have learned directly. And they have learned that directly because that's within the textbooks. These are textbooks that were adopted in California, and because California is such a huge market for educational materials, once it's in those textbooks, that's what's disseminated across the rest of the country. It downplays jihad. It downplays the concept of from the river to the sea, which is the eradication of Israel. It downplays Sharia law as something that just means get closer to God. It downplays the modesty laws and all of that stuff. I was reading in these textbooks, it even downplays the Islamic conquest, and it says that Islam spread. It doesn't say that Islam.
Not saying it's spread by the sword.
It doesn't say that it's spread by the
water.
sword.
It just naturally trickles through the soil.
And it also says like that because that it's part of Islam that you can't convert people on purpose, and so therefore it's peaceful and it lives. Islam lives in harmony with other religions without actually mentioning the horrifying wars,
and
all of that stuff.
What the cultural implications
Right.
are.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
there's
right.
this story right now about this 16-year-old girl.
we
who
covered
was-
that today at Human Events. Yeah,
She was beaten because she wasn't wearing her hijab correctly, I believe, and so she's in
On
a
the
vegetative
on
state.
Dragged from a train.
Right. She's
On
in
public
a
transit.
vegetative state. She, I assume, will not make it, which is extremely tragic. But in America, we get to say like, oh, it's just a different culture. We don't know what it's like there. It's gross. We would not let this happen here, I hope.
but we do let it
we
happen
do-
here.
It's worse.
I mean, there's honor killings in the U.S.
Yeah, there are, but we don't talk
Yes.
about them.
Yes, but
that's
hold
the
on.
thing.
While there are many stories like that, there are women being victimized and beaten in the streets, and men, as crime is running rampant. We're now seeing like CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, and all these stores. 1,500 stores are closing over the rampant crime. So when we talk about, oh, it's so awful this woman didn't wear her hijab and she was beaten, you're absolutely right. It's horrible. And then we have the story of the woman on the train in Philadelphia who was raped and everyone just watched it happen.
Right.
Then you have the story of the guy in New York City who saw the dude threatening the lives of the people on the train and said, I got to stop this guy with two other dudes. And then they tried to lock him up.
Yeah.
They're still trying to lock
They're
him up.
still trying to lock him up. Yeah, they're
So we're like,
charging him.
we would never let it happen here. And here's a guy who tried to save the lives of people on a train. And one woman said that man saved our lives, and the police are locking him up in jail. So we got those problems.
I don't think it's that we don't let bad things happen here. It's just the specific modesty laws don't exist here the same way, except when they're enforced culturally by
we
certain
got it
groups.
the other direction.
I know.
This is the problem. I mean, it's like we have the mirror image to the Iran problem. Iran's problem is they're beating women for not wearing a hijab. They shouldn't be doing that. And then they kill this young woman. There's protests. And then in the United States, the inverse, where they're putting these lewd and lascivious books in schools. And we're like, man, where's the middle ground? Like, let women wear, sexy clothes, but don't give kids these books with graphic material in them.
And it's weird because the same progressives that are saying, yes, put those books in school are the same ones chanting in favor of
Right,
Hamas.
exactly.
Right. And
Exactly.
they would be like the first ones on
be
the
the-
wall if Hamas had anything to say
They
about it.
could
so.
never
Bro.
survive in this culture they're advocating for.
The left tried arguing this a long time ago, that Trump supporters had a lot in common with like Al Qaeda and like Muslim terrorists or whatever.
remember this.
Like, dude, if Hamas did come over here and it was just like some like regular Palestinian guy on a street corner and he started expressing his opinions on LGBTQ stuff and wokeness, a lot of conservatives would be like, I completely agree with those positions. Then, of course, the guy would say something like throw him off a roof or whatever, something horrifying. And the Trump supporter would be like, yo, bro, what's wrong with you? That's crazy. That's like way too far for us. But so many of these left-wing activists are cheering for a group that, as you all mentioned, would either lock them up for 10 years, that's the law in Gaza. Being gay is a 10-year prison sentence or something substantially worse.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are definitely uneducated on what goes on in Palestine, but I do understand some of their gripes, and I think that you talk about the textbook things. I've heard reports of textbooks being infiltrated with Zionist, certain angles, and I'm Jewish, and I don't want that. I want my students in my country learning real truth and not that's tampered with by some special interest. And I think that's why a lot of Americans, especially Christian Americans, are kind of entranced with the fact that we must go to war, we must go defend Israel. And listen, I want there to be peace more than anyone, but I don't think we should get involved with a conflict at all that's foreign. I think we should be focusing on our issues here, like the guy in the subway. And I just think that Americans are so funny, as at least Christian Americans, and especially those who call themselves conservatives, when they say, let's not go to Ukraine, quit sending my lunch money to Ukraine. And then the second Israel gets attacked, they want to send the kitchen sink.
Israel is a really long-standing ally.
I get that. But when that long-standing ally is committing war crimes.
Israel was attacked.
Right, they were attacked, and that shouldn't have happened. And I think that it's under questionable circumstances as well, because even Charlie Kirk pointed out that when it happened, there was a 7-hour stop ordered by Netanyahu.
He didn't say that definitively, though.
Right, in which he was attacked right after too. But
Charlie said, "I wonder if someone gave a stand-down order, because how did they not know this?"
well, in Egypt warned him apparently too. But also,
Yeah, but Egypt said something big might happen,
Right.
which is not a warning of anything. It's not. We don't know what the specific intelligence it was. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.